And to finally complete the most significant news for the day, Y News continues. Here are the top stories. Actor-politician Edu Manzano says a candidate's track record and not fame must be a voter's basis in choosing an official in the upcoming May polls. Mai Bermudez will tell us why.
Congressional bet of the Lone District of San Juan City, Edu Manzano responded to several issues in the country, such as the water crisis.
Considering the current plight of the mga San Juaneños na marami ding naapektuhan ng water crisis.
He also calls to stop finger-pointing and start a serious probe to find out who should be held liable, as a lot of areas in Metro Manila are experiencing lack of water supply.
I think we should open up a true blue inquiry para tignan natin kung there have been violations of the concession agreement that was given to the utility companies, or there has been fault on the part of the regulators.
In the UNTV program Bawal ang Pikon, Get It Straight with Daniel Razon on Tuesday, Manzano vowed that he will prioritize his constituents once he gets elected.
Pero ang pangako ko naman kasi, kapag tayo ay papalarin, hindi muna ako magpipelikula, hindi muna ako magte-telebisyon. Dahil mas importante ang pagsilbihan ng mga taong bumoto para sa'yo.
Some of his priorities are the welfare of senior citizens, the youth, and pushing for electronic voting. Manzano also said that a candidate's track record and not fame should become the basis of voters in choosing who should sit in public office.
Celebrities are very, very, it's up to, it's up to the people to determine if the individual is qualified. That's why it's important that they get to see his resume or yung kanyang past record, no? And the moment that makadiscover tayo ng isang in the same note, may mga politicians na gusto pumasok ng show business para lang ma-increase ang kanilang visibility, sila din should be subjected to the same kind of scrutiny.
Mai Bermudez, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
Meanwhile, a policeman who was riding a motorcycle was shot dead while traversing the southbound lane of EDSA, Connecticut in San Juan City at around 3:30 this afternoon. The victim was identified as Senior Police Officer 2 Solomon Kugay, who began his service as a policeman in December 2003. SPO2 Kugay was assigned at the Regional Learning Doctrine Development Division under the National Capital Region Police Office, or NCRPO. Authorities have investigations underway as to the identity of the perpetrator of the crime. In other news, Senate President Vicente Soto III on Tuesday finally signed the 2019 General Appropriations Bill with strong reservations. Reading his letter to the President, Soto argued that his attestation is limited only to those items approved by the Bicameral Conference Committee and ratified both houses of Congress. The Senate leader maintained that the 75 billion pesos worth of programs or projects under the Local Infrastructure Program of the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, funded through internal realignments were unconstitutional. The 2019 National Budget Bill will now be submitted to President Rodrigo Duterte for review and signature. Manila Water will voluntarily waive the minimum charges for the month of March for their customers affected by the water shortage. This will be reflected in the April water bill. Manila Water President Ferdinand de la Cruz said the April bill will be fully waived if residents experience water interruption for at least 7 days, whether consecutive days or not. All customers, meanwhile, will no longer have to pay the minimum charge for 10 cubic meters, or 76 pesos for residential to 656 pesos for industrial customers, but they will still have to pay for consumption above 10 cubic meters. Manila Water reports that from 62 barangays, there are now only 8 barangays that still do not have water supply. The Philippine National Police, or PNP Chief Police Director General Oscar Albayalde denies the received intel reports from former Senior Superintendent Eduardo Acierto on Michael Yang. one of President Rodrigo Duterte's economic managers. According to Asierto, this matrix is among the reports he submitted to former Philippine National Police Chief Ronald Bato de la Rosa, Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Director Aaron Aquino, and incumbent PNP Chief Albayalde. Asierto, who once served as the officer in charge of the now-defunct PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Group, alleges Yang has links to the Johnson Chua drug syndicate. Michael Yang alias Dragon and his business partner Alan Lim are said to be in charge of facilitating the entry of illegal drugs in the country through the help of several officials in the Bureau of Customs.
Since I assumed office as Chief PNP on April 2018, I do not remember having received any copy of an alleged report that identified Presidential Advisor Michael Yang as being involved in illegal drugs.
And for the news abroad, here's Kath Dumaraos live from Bangkok, Thailand. Good evening, Kath.
Good evening, William. The Pheu Thai party linked to Thailand's self-exiled former leader Thaksin-linked said on Monday that it had opened negotiations with other anti-junta parties to try to form a government, though the results of Sunday's general election remain unclear. Only partial results have been announced from Sunday's poll, the country's first since a 2014 military coup, and a clear picture is unlikely to emerge before Friday. Putam Wachayatai, Pheu Thai Secretary General, said the votes cast for anti-junta parties showed a desire to return to democratic rule, and that must be respected. Pheu Thai won 138 seats in the House of Representatives, and a pro-army party secured 96 seats, but the winners of 150 of the lower house seats are still unclear, according to the Election Commission, which will only announce lower seats results on May 9. Tragedies like the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High and Sandy Hook Elementary School massacres eventually fade from view, blunted by other mass shootings and the passage of time. But for the survivors, the pain can never end. Kat Carriedo will tell us why.
Parkland shooting survivors and gun control activists organized a demonstration outside Congress amid the recent spate of suicides of school shooting survivors. On Monday, 49-year-old Jeremy Richmond, the father of 6-year-old Aviel Richmond who was killed in the 2012 mass shooting at Sandy Hook Elementary School, was found dead of an apparent suicide at his office in Newtown, Connecticut, police said. Aviel Richmond was one of 20 children, all 6 or 7 years old, killed along with 6 adult staff members by a man with a semi-automatic rifle at the school in December of 2012. In the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting, one of the deadliest in U.S. history, Richmond and his wife Jennifer Hansel started the Aviel Foundation, which seeks to prevent violence through brain science research, community engagement, and education.
We need to face and take action on hard issues. There is not going to be one simple solution, but we feel it is essential to get a deeper understanding of mental health in terms of research, education, and policy.
Richmond had been advocating for fixes to the mental health care system and left his job as a pharmaceutical researcher to pursue that mission, the Hartford Courant reported. The news of Richmond's death follows the apparent suicides of 2 teenage survivors of the February 2018 Parkland, Florida school shooting. 19-year-old Sydney Aiello took her own life last week after suffering from survivor's guilt and post-traumatic stress disorder, according to CBS Miami. She had been a high school student at the time of the shooting and lost her friend Meadow Pollack in the attack. A second Stoneman Douglas pupil apparently took his own life on Saturday, police say. They have not named the student. On this, the first anniversary of the March for Our Lives Gun Control March, activists are asking senators to support the Background Check Expansion Act, which would require a background check for every firearm sale. The bill was introduced on January 8, 2019 and will be considered by committee before it is possibly sent to the Senate floor.
I feel like there's definitely more that we can do, but we've done really well so far. It's good to take a breath today, take a pat on our backs, and continue.
we have to realize that even though we may have all gone through different things in different communities, and Parkland doesn't look like most parts of America, and many other communities don't look like any other part of America, we can come together through our shared suffering and our trauma and the individuals that we've lost to make sure that there are no more.
Meanwhile, Broward County School Superintendent Robert Rancis said on Sunday that parents and organizations across the country were discussing what could be done to help children throughout the country cope with trauma and depression. Kath Carriedo, UNTV News and Rescue, USA.
Venezuela experienced a second mass blackout incident in a month. Meanwhile, 7 people have been injured after a rocket fired from the Gaza Strip hit a house in central Israel. Here's Jovic Bermas to tell us why.
In Israel has carried out strikes on Hamas targets in the Gaza Strip hours after a rocket hit a house north of Tel Aviv. The Israel Defense Forces said the office of Hamas's political leader and the group's military intelligence headquarters were among the targets. The IDF earlier blamed Hamas, which controls Gaza, for the launch of the rocket that hit the Israeli community of Mishmeret, injuring 7 people. So far, no Palestinian militant group has said it fired the rocket. One unnamed Hamas official said it had no interest in doing so. In Mexico, the Mexican president has sent a letter to Spain's King Felipe VI and Pope Francis urging them to apologize for human rights abuses committed during the conquest of the region. Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador said the indigenous peoples of Mexico had been the victims of massacres. Spanish media has reported that Madrid regretted the letter and that the EU nation is committed to strengthening its close ties with Mexico. In Brazil, Brazil's former President Michel Temer returned to his Sao Paulo home on Monday, hours after a judge released him from jail following his high-profile arrest on graft charges last week, which marked a fresh landmark in the country's battle against political corruption. Federal prosecutors have accused Temer, who was president from 2016 to 2018, of leading a criminal organization that had received or arranged for up to 1.8 billion reais or $472 million in bribes through various kickback schemes. He has denied any wrongdoing, and his lawyers appealed for his release, arguing that he could be tried while free. And in Venezuela, millions of Venezuelans were hit by a new blackout on Monday, the second to hit the OPEC nation this month, that shuttered businesses, plunged the main airport into darkness, and left commuters stranded in the capital. Power went out in much of Caracas and nearly a dozen states in the early afternoon, stirring memories of a week-long outage earlier in the month that was the most severe in the country's history. Service was restored in many areas within hours on Monday, and Information Minister Jorge Rodriguez said in a televised broadcast that power was being progressively re-established. Authorities have blamed an attack on its electric system for the blackout. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
Thank you very much, Kath Dumaraos, reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. South Africa's Kevin Anderson and Australia's Jordan Thompson are set to meet at the Miami Masters in round of 16. Meanwhile, Thomas de Gent wins the opening stage of Volta a Catalunya in a breakaway. Vincent Arboleda will tell us why.
In cycling, Belgium's Thomas de Gent outlasted other riders in a breakaway group to take the opening stage of the Volta a Catalunya on Monday. The Lotto Soudal rider was amongst a group of 6 riders who broke away during the 164 kilometers road in and around Calella. The breakaway group built up a lead of over 4 minutes at one stage, but dropped off one by one on the climbs until only de Gent was left to lead on his own. Germany's Maximilian Sachmann attacked and dropped the peloton with 5 kilometers to go to finish in second place, nearly 3 minutes behind de Gent. And in tennis, Kevin Anderson's booming serve proved too much for Joel Sousa as the South African advanced to the fourth round of the Miami Open in Florida on Monday. In another action, world number 3 Grigor Dimitrov was ousted by Australia's Jordan Thompson in straight sets 7-7, 7-5. Anderson and Thompson will meet in round 16 at the grandstand. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue.
Meanwhile, Irish mixed martial arts or MMA fighter Conor McGregor announced his retirement from the sport on Tuesday, 5 months after losing to Khabib Nurmagomedov in a controversial title fight in Las Vegas. McGregor made the announcement on his official Twitter account. The 30-year-old retires with a record of 21 wins and 4 defeats. He is still suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission for his part in a brawl that broke out after his bout with Nurmagomedov last October. McGregor was charged in April 2018 with 3 counts of assault and 1 count of criminal mischief after police said he attacked a charter bus in New York carrying UFC fighters. He was also arrested in Florida earlier this month in a separate incident after he smashed a fan's phone. This marks the second time McGregor has announced on Twitter that he has retired. Steven Spielberg and Oprah Winfrey at Apple headquarters for streaming service launch. Lead Apple has unveiled its live TV streaming platform at a star-studded event in California. Ferdy Petalio will tell us why.
Apple Incorporated unveiled its Apple TV Plus original content streaming service and Apple TV channel subscription service at an event at its Cupertino, California headquarters on Monday.
Apple TV Plus.
The Apple TV Plus service features original content from Hollywood heavyweights like Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, and will launch this fall. The platform also includes shows from existing services like Hulu and HBO. It will be ad-free and available on Apple devices, as well as other platforms such as Roku and Amazon Fire TV. The subscription fee was not announced, and notably absent from the launch lineup was Netflix, which had already ruled itself out of being part of the bundle. Steven Spielberg and Oprah Winfrey were among those who took the stage at Apple's headquarters to reveal their involvement in TV projects commissioned by the tech giant.
We search for common ground. We want to be heard, but we also need to listen, to be open, and contribute in order to harness our hopes and dreams and to heal our divisions. That's why I have joined forces with Apple.
I'm so grateful to be here today. This is my first time at Apple. The place where imagination and technology join forces to change the world through sight and sound and touch.
Apple Card.
Apple also introduced a titanium laser-edge Apple Card backed by Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated and MasterCard Incorporated can track spending across devices and pay daily cash back on purchases. The firm also revealed a news service, Apple News Plus, which will include more than 300 magazine titles, including Marie Claire, Vogue, New Yorker, Esquire, National Geographic, and Rolling Stone. The LA Times and the Wall Street Journal will also be part of the platform, the firm said. Ferdy Petalio, UNTV News and Rescue.
All of these magazines.
And those are the reasons behind the news this March 26, 2019. On behalf of Rina Villamor Camara and Angelo Castro III, I am William Theo, and before we close, we will recap with today's significant sound bites. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
Attached as Annex 1 is the list of 95 billion worth of programs, projects, which include the 75 billion programs and projects funded from the said realignments. The President may wish to consider disapproving these unconstitutional realignments pursuant to his constitutional power to veto particular items in the General Appropriations Act.
We are announcing a voluntary and one-time bill waiver scheme to be reflected in the April bill to our customers.
Itong conduction sticker material, isang kinoconsider natin din yan dahil ito naman naglalast at hindi ito may panganib na matanggal, lilipad at tatama sa body ng motorsiklo.
Kung talagang galit si Presidente Duterte sa droga, bakit hindi niya ipinahuli ang mga nasabing taong ito? O pinaimbestigahan man lang? Hindi man ako nagkulang sa pag-submit ng detalyadong report sa mga taong may otoridad na kumilos at magprotekta sa bayan.
Since I assumed office as Chief PNP on April 2018, I do not remember having received any copy of an alleged report that identified Presidential Advisor Michael Yang as being involved in illegal drugs.
We search for common ground. We want to be heard, but we also need to listen, to be open, and contribute in order to harness our hopes and dreams and to heal our divisions. That's why I have joined forces with Apple.